Hey girl, welcome to the Get Your Guide Coaching podcast. My name is Anwar White, but you can just call me your own personal dating and relationship coach. Each week, you'll hear actionable advice, tips, and strategies that you can implement in your own love life. I'm talking about healing your heart, dating effectively, and understanding men so that you can, you guessed it, get your guy. Are you ready to level up your love life? All right, let's go.
I never felt the way I do about anyone but you.
Hello, my loves. Thank you so much for joining the Get Your Guide Coaching podcast. I have a very special guest and friend and former classmate of mine here on the podcast today. Her name is Mandy Tang, and we are so happy that you're here, honey. She is a career coach. She will get your professional life in order, from resume to understanding transitions to everything. And we're here to talk about how to quit. Mandy, thank you so much for being here, girl.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm such a fan.
So Mandy and I went to business school together, and we were, I guess you could say, maybe a little bit different than all of the finance bros, all of the 6'5", blue-eyed, trust fund finance bros.
6'5", blue eyes, trust fund. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, very much so.
We were like the personality hires. We were
Yes, girl, that. Tell the beautiful listeners what you do and why you're amazing.
Okay. So I am a career coach, and I work with people to help guide them through their work transitions. So I think that the kind of angle that I take is I help on the sort of emotional stuff that comes up with your career and with your identity with work. And I like to describe it as like the path of the wounded healer. It's like whatever was the thing that hurt you becomes your superpower.
Yeah.
And I started out as like a traditional coach. Like I would help people with their resumes and their LinkedIn and like kind of the tactical stuff.
Right.
And then as I would like sit with someone and do their resume, I'd be like, okay, so tell me about this job. And then they would be like, they'd get emotional, they'd get teary, or they'd get choked up. And I realized that I was actually helping to metabolize some of this stuck energy with like some, trauma that happened in the workplace that they couldn't even get past to just update their resume and make it look cute, Yeah. So as I did that more and more, I realized, you know what, there's something here with the deeper coaching and the deeper healing in our relationship with work.
Yes. So it's interesting. I know some people are like, well, why is she on here? No shade. But last week, I was actually talking with my clients about how your career, your job becomes your relationship, your boyfriend until you get one. And it was, as you were pointing it out, something that was very emotional. And I know that how you show up in your job is actually the same way that you're going to show up in relationships. So some of the things that you were just saying around like wanting to feel valued, seen is like very much how we might show up in our relationships, right? And maybe feeling like we have to perform or do certain things. And this episode is all about quitting, or most of it is about quitting, because I know that similar to dating, to find success, you kind of have to quit and quit a lot in a variety of different ways. And so I want to make sure that we're sharing with the ladies kind of how to do this. But talk to me about what patterns you see your clients and how they're showing up in the workplace.
I'll tell you about kind of like a general thing that I see. So people graduate from school, right? And they are used to an external rubric where it's like an A is good, a B is okay. There is a clear way of measuring your worth. And so I come from an immigrant family, and I don't know about you, but my parents were like obsessed with brands. Like my mom, if she found like a Polo Ralph Lauren at a discount store, she would be like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Totally.
And especially like Asians, they're like obsessed with brands. Like we love a Gucci, we love a Prada. Right?
Girl, blacks too, girl. Blacks too.
Yeah. I mean, everyone really, but yes.
Yeah.
So what happens is the same way that a parent is going to be like, ooh, Gucci, nice, right? That it happens with schools and it happens with companies, right? So it's like, oh, did you hear so and so's daughter went to Yale? Oh,
Mm,
did you hear so and so's son works at Goldman Sachs? Like, so brands take on a kind of shiny quality. So the same way that you would want to get into a good school to make your parents proud is the same way that you're going to try and go work at Google or BCG or McKinsey or one of these fancy companies because it's a gold star,
right.
right? And so we kind of chase these gold stars. And once you get into the corporate world, first off, the reality is very different from the gold star that we think it's gonna it doesn't feel like that, you
Right.
know? Um, but then once you get there, you're just so used to this external map to give you a sense of worth, to give you a sense of identity. Like, oh, I went to an Ivy League school and I work at this fancy place. And so therefore I am important, I am worthy. Right. So we're getting our sense of worth from these companies and from this sense of prestige.
Yeah.
Um, and it can get really toxic, right? So what happens is that's kind of how we're set up. And we're always looking for this external validation. And then once we get to the workplace, this is where the kind of unhealthy patterns begin because we're so hungry for that pat on the head. We're so hungry to be told, oh my gosh, you're in the top 10%. You're so amazing. We've never seen an associate like you. Like, thank you for going above and beyond. Like all those little phrases and pats on the head we live for, that we start putting the company ahead of ourselves. So we do things like we spend too much time at work. We're checking our email 24/7. We are logging in after dinner, after we put the kids to bed. I mean, we just start to prioritize the company over everything. Why? Because it's the thing that gives us value.
Hmm. It gives us the pat on the head, which is exactly the same thing that we're doing in our relationships, or many of us maybe have a pattern of doing in our relationships that we're doing way too damn much. We're texting too much. We're calling too much. We're working too hard. We're planning the dates. We're paying for dates. We're doing everything so that we can get a pat on the head, a pat on the back, get the attention that we want and that we need, that maybe we need to give to ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, the attention, the affirmation, the validation that we look for. I always say to my client, it's so funny. I always use dating analogies when I'm like talking to my clients,
Yeah.
but I'm always like, you're looking for love in all the wrong places. If
Yeah.
you think some VP of capital markets is going to make you feel good,
Think
if
again.
you know what I mean, if you think that sacrificing all of your time and your family time and your personal time for a job in marketing, I mean, it's just not, we're looking for love in all the wrong places.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you talked about your Asian background, and you know that this is a podcast for, well, for all women, but centering the experience of women of color specifically. One of the things that I think is really tough is a lot of like the microaggressions and some of the gaslighting that sometimes happens in the workplace that often can happen in your dating life as well. And so I guess my question for you, because really I want us to figure out how do we quit the things that aren't necessarily serving us? What do you tell your clients about that? Like, how do we manage that? Should we be going to HR? Like, what do you think we should be doing here?
I'll tell you a pattern that I see, and then I'll talk a little bit about HR. So the pattern that I see is okay, again, I'll talk about it from the Asian immigrant perspective, right? So in our households, there's a very strict hierarchy.
Hmm.
Um, and this is just handed down from centuries of patriarchy and like male dominated societies, right? But like, I love my parents, but there's a hierarchy. It's like if you even walk into a restaurant, it's dad walks first, then mom, then brother, then me, because I'm the youngest daughter, right?
Hmm.
So even these little things, you are sort of taught about the hierarchy. And part of that, especially as you're growing up, is you are taught to be helpful and you are taught to be seen but not heard,
Hmm. Of course.
right? Be docile. be good, be nice, right? So we're taught these things. Um, the stereotypical Asian woman is someone who's quiet and really good at math, right? So the idea that you would speak up and speak out and call people out on their BS and stand up for yourself is actually very opposite to how we were raised.
Hmm.
That when I work with Asian women who I'm coaching, the number one thing they're always like, my boss is always giving me feedback that I need to speak up.
Mm.
But it's like, oh, really? Because your entire childhood, you were taught to be quiet.
Right.
And all of a sudden we come to corporate and we're supposed to be like little cheerleaders in the workplace, like vocalizing every opinion. So I say this to kind of set the stage and say so that when microaggressions happen, because they will and they do, right? I think a lot of us internalize it. A lot of us just say, like, it's not natural to call someone out on that.
Right.
Right. But what happens is if you just remain silent in the workplace and you just take it and take it and take it, what happens is that you get burnt out, right? You start to become, and for good reason, pretty skeptical. You walk into the office and you're like, what's even the point? Like, I hate this place, but I have to be here. You get into this sort of cycle of feeling stuck, right? So something that I've been coaching my clients on is just to say something in the moment. And there's a fine line because I also don't believe in doing the emotional labor for everybody. Like, I'm not here to
Right.
educate you on all the ways that you are ignorant. Like,
Yeah.
sorry. But at the same time, it's like if you don't say your piece or at least express your discomfort, you're going to take that home and you're going to ruminate on that all night.
Hmm.
You're like, why did that person say that thing? I feel so uncomfy. Like, I don't like this. And so I think my advice would be connecting whatever reaction you have, that pain, that zing, that feeling of like, ow, like, what did they mean by that? Connecting that to an action, to even just something in the moment. Like, let's say a microaggression happens in the moment, just saying, oh, I'm sorry, what did you mean by that?
Hmm. Yeah.
Or just saying, I don't know, that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
This is the language that I try to teach my clients, right? That we have to bring some feelings to it. And it's actually really interesting that you talk about the kind of the Asian experience because it's actually quite similar. The Black experience is actually quite similar as well. But
Yeah.
I think that a lot of Black women are more outspoken because there's so much gaslighting and microaggressions and macroaggressions that are happening on a daily basis that they're actually exploding. And that's why they're sharing their feelings instead of expressing the boundaries when it comes up to your point to be able to manage some of these things. But I totally agree with you. We do need to say something, I think, in the moment, because that is a part of kind of quitting and letting, and really when we talk about quitting in this episode, I want you to hear boundary, right? I want you to hear, no, this doesn't work for me. So I love the language of this makes me feel uncomfortable, or I didn't like how that landed, or I didn't like how that made me
Perfect.
feel, right? Because when
Perfect.
we center the feelings, that's hard to debate, right? Versus I think a lot of women or a lot of individuals will say, you did this or you did that, right? And you want to come from like an intellectual place and you want to like go back and forth debate and argue about the merits or whether it's right or wrong versus how it made you feel. So I love that like language around just sharing that in the moment and putting it back on them to make it right again, especially as someone of color, because now we're using some of the power that we have and putting it back on them.
Yeah.
Do you think we should go to HR?
Okay. So, and I say this with love, and I say this having a lot of good friends who work in HR. Okay.
Uh-huh.
HR is not your friend. They're not your friend. HR is a function that at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, they are there to protect the interests of the company.
Hmm.
They're not your therapist. They're not your coach. It's actually not a confidential space. Like, here's what I say. I'm like, okay, well, you can go to HR, but just know that that means you've gone to everybody.
Mm. So what you're telling me is that HR is kind of like calling the police. For people of
Yeah,
color, sometimes it's not, it doesn't like kind of it's necessary, but sometimes you still feel really uncomfortable because they might not be fully on your side.
that is the perfect analogy. And I think that sometimes people go to HR because they feel, again, this is the parental energy, right?
Mm,
Well, let me just tell mom, maybe she'll make it better.
that's right.
And
That's it.
it's like, no, they're actually not there to do that. And they actually have a corporate responsibility. If you come to them with information, sensitive, important information, they have a duty to report that
Yeah.
because they're not going to just be your counselor unless you have a very special relationship with them and they say this is confidential, I'm coming here as your friend, not as HR. Then even then I'm like, tread lightly. But I think that sometimes people go thinking, oh, HR is going to help me mediate and remedy the situation, and HR, like all parts of corporate America, are risk averse.
Mm,
They're not trying to get into some trouble by getting into some relationship with you and counseling you.
right.
They're trying to cover their ass. So be careful.
Yeah.
Have your stuff ready. Know what you want to get out of it. And also know that when you go to HR, I mean, you are kind of, it is a formal conversation.
Hmm.
Believe me that everything you say will be written down, will be, you know what I mean? There's nothing casual about it.
So what you're telling me is that HR is given TMZ, and that everybody's going to know your business potentially, right?
It's like, hey, everybody, I just like to announce that I'm having an issue with my boss. Thank you very
Right.
much. Like,
Right.
if you think that
Exactly.
HR is not immediately going to turn around and go tell your boss exactly what you said, they will. That's their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a
TMZ.
lot of people don't understand that. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation. Okay, so let's talk about quitting, right? Because I actually think that half of the listeners on here probably need to quit their jobs and probably quit the guys that they're talking to. But sometimes there's like an aversion to it, right? And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
why do you think that like people are not quitting? Why do you think that quitting is so important?
Okay. So, two things. I think that quitting is extremely important because it is a declaration of your boundary. And it is you saying, I am willing to take a risk and leave rather than put up with this anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
So, that's reason number one. Number two is that the reason people don't quit is it's scary. The devil you know is better than, there's a lot of fear, right? So, okay, let's take an ordinary situation would be you have another job lined up. I wouldn't really call that quitting. I would call that leaving for another job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of normal. And I highly encourage that as well.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But if your situation at work is getting to a point where you are having to come home and recover for more than 2 hours, right? If you're crying multiple times a week, um, if your friends and family are like, oh, again, like you told this story so many, I mean, this is just like dating, right? And your
Right.
friends are like, okay, girl, like
Leave him
he's still
already.
treating you like that, you
Right.
know? And if so, these are some of the symptoms. If you're experiencing these symptoms, you probably should have an exit plan,
Yeah.
you know? And the reason that people don't is because it's here's what I'll say. When you're in a toxic situation where people are asserting their authority over you and you feel powerless, it strips you of your creativity.
Yeah.
Creative thinking, it strips you of your ability to think of you in a different, better situation.
Mm.
It's like an abusive relationship. You know what I mean? Like
Totally
you
is.
can't think straight. You cannot imagine what life could be not in this horror show. And
Yeah.
so it's fight or flight. You freeze.
Yeah.
Like, I
Definitely.
don't know what to do. I'm so beat down. I can't leave. Plus, there's shame in quitting, especially. I mean, just again, what if
Let's
those next
talk
two
about that,
don't
especially
give up?
as someone of color, right? I think that there's like it's also multifaceted in that like one, there may already be some money wounds. And so like quitting can like mean, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless and die, right? That like
Yeah,
that's where the head goes to, but also like for many of us who are first generation people who went to college and like everyone is like looking to us as like to be the beacon of hope,
yeah.
to be the leader of the family. And so when you quit a job, like you're like bringing on your entire family every time you go to a job. And it can feel like this pressure that I don't think a lot of people talk about.
Yes, exactly. So because we're often the generation of firsts, right? first person to go to this type of school, first person to work at a Fortune 100 company. And we take such pride in that because our entire family, I mean, think about it. Like from my Asian experience, like my parents ran away from wars. You know what I mean? Like they have scarcity mindset, not as a joke, but just because things were really scarce at one point. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? You come when you come from nothing or when you're first generation, like your parents save plastic bags and have old chicken in the freezer for a reason.
Girl,
It's because that was
ketchup packets, girl, all of it.
the amount of ketchup packets, honey packets, barbecue. I'm like, Mom, you don't even eat barbecue sauce, just in case. You know, everything is
Right.
this what if the war what if there's another war? What if there's an
Mm.
invasion? Like it is this mindset. And so this idea, it's the parental voice is you're spoiled if you think that
Mm.
look how hard we worked, look how many ketchup packets we
This is
saved.
it. This is it.
How dare you? And I honor that. You know what I mean? Like that's such a part of who we are. And also it holds us back because it keeps us in situations that no longer serve us. And we have to believe in ourselves and believe that we can do better. And
Yes.
we can't, like it is risky and I do want to leave because I value my mental health and I know that I'm going to find something better. And it's the same as like I'd rather be people are just scared to be single. You know what I
Right.
mean? But it's like be single for a while. It's okay.
I love this so much because I just think it's when you're able to do this, and I know it's really hard, but you are breaking generational curses, right? And
Generational
you are
curses.
able to sit in your own agency and be able to say, that's not acceptable. I'm not taking that. And for many of us, who grew up seeing our mothers maybe not treated in the best way. And she stuck around and she said, this is the best that I'm going to do. And that's okay for you to say, no, that I'm not going to do. It breaks curses. And, people are observing and seeing what you're doing. And because you will hold a part of a leadership of a family, they will be inspired and motivated to do the same thing. And so if there's anything that I want people to take away from this episode, please realize that yes, moves quitting like this and quitting like a winner is not just going to be good for you, but can be good for your entire family because you are going to inspire them to be able to require more and better for themselves.
100%. And just as you were saying that, I was thinking too about how we do this thing where we don't even want to tell our parents or our loved ones like about something we're doing until it's all settled and perfect.
Hmm.
You're like, let me just stay quiet on this until I have all my ducks lined up in a row. And I think that that's actually harmful. And
Yeah.
I think, I mean, listen, I imagine I look back at all the times where I've had these conversations with my parents and they don't understand. They're like,
Bro, not
you're
even half of
leaving,
it.
you're leaving American Express to go do a startup. You're do coach. How's your coaching business? How's your coach? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and it's like it takes work to sit there and be like, here's my vision, and knowing I'm shaky in it. I'm not 100%, but I know it's better than what I'm leaving. So
Hmm.
it's having those conversations or having even a half conversation. You know what I mean? It's never a perfect conversation, but just being willing to kind of stand up for yourself in that way and be like, no, like I believe in this. I think what I'm doing is right. And just know, and just kind of knowing, having support systems outside of your immediate family so that when your crazy family inevitably is like, we don't get it, you have someone who is like, no, babe, like, you
Yeah.
got this.
I love that. And I think in that conversation, when you're sharing your vision, shaky or not, I think it's important to be very clear about giving your loved ones, your tribe, a direct ask and request, which is, and I really would like your support in this, right? Um, it's for me, I think being very direct in that ask kind of is a verbal contract, right? Yeah, you know that your friends and your family, they love you and blah blah blah, but you're asking them, no, I need you to like lift me up and support me because it's going to be a roller coaster. There are going to be
Yeah.
ups and there are going to be
Yeah.
downs. And the last thing that you need is like when you're down for them to be like, yeah, I told you so.
Mm,
I knew this wasn't going to work, but no, I need you to support me in all of the different levels here. And so don't be afraid to make that ask when you're sharing your new vision or your next step with those people because you're going to need it. right? And
Yeah.
that like I think this is such a great point around like don't quit in isolation. Quit with the
Yeah.
support so that you can feel empowered even when you don't feel the power within yourself in the moments.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, talk to me about some of the best ways to quit because I know we've had these conversations about clean endings, clean beginnings, and so I want to hear like, because girl, I've quit messy. I've been
I quit
clean,
messy
I've
too.
been messy, I've been anything in between, girl. But I want the listeners to be keep it cute, honey. Don't be messy like me because it doesn't work out that way.
Learn from us.
Bridges burnt,
Don't be messy.
scorched.
Don't be messy. Okay. So I'm going to give you the philosophy and then I'll give you the tactics. Okay. So the philosophy is that everything in life we do in containers, right? So this job that you're at currently is a container. And you want to have a clean ending so that you can have a clean beginning. And by clean ending, let's talk about it energetically. You're not taking anything with you that doesn't belong to you,
So not even
aka
the
there.
pens,
You can take
post-its.
their office supplies. It's
Okay, okay,
fine.
girl. Okay, girl.
Take all the post-its you want.
Uh-huh.
Take all the extra monitors that they're willing to give you. Um, but all of the stuff that doesn't belong to you, like their judgments, their weird processes, their um pressure to be perfect. Like just look at the stuff, the emotional junk, and be like, what belongs to me and what doesn't belong to me.
Mhm.
And then also remember, don't leave anything behind. So
What does that
here's
mean?
the thing. I talk to a lot of people, and you probably see this too, smart, stunning, capable women. I'll just say women, okay? And they're like, I think I lost my confidence.
Mhm.
I don't even know if I'm good anymore. And I'm like, bitch, what? Like, what are you
Right.
talking about? You're amazing.
Yeah.
But they,
The job beat them down. Beat it
the
up.
job beat them down. They leave it on the floor. It's like, go pick that back up. It's yours. You need to repair it. Okay. And so a lot of these jobs, they gaslight you into thinking you're like not even good at what you do.
Mhm.
And so when I say don't leave anything behind, it's like don't leave parts of yourself, optimistic parts, hopeful parts, joyful parts. That comes with you.
Yes. And I love that as advice for relationships and dating as well, because the person that you are at the beginning of the relationship may not be the person that you are at the end of the relationship, but you got to bring that optimism and that hope and that spirit to your next relationship, to your dating experience, because if you don't, you're gonna run into the same situation.
Exactly. So when I think about quitting, okay, now the tactical part is, it's going to be a series of conversations. And I believe, so first off, I've gotten this question on TikTok where people are like, how do I quit? Do I do it in an email? Do I do it in person? And I'll just say in person slash live, like virtually, right? I always think that, I'm a little old school, but I think that you should quit live, like whether that's on a Zoom call or in person.
Hmm.
Um, because I think that quitting is really hard. And I think it's important to teach yourself that you can do hard things. You
Hmm.
can look someone in the eye and you can be like, I'd like to let you know that I am officially putting in my notice. Like that's a hard thing to say to someone who you might be scared of, who might have said mean things to you in the past. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And part of this is it's like slaying the dragons. It's looking fear in the eye and being like, I'm going to do this hard thing.
Right.
So, and part of when you do that, when you show up, when the words come out of your mouth, like, unfortunately, this place is not a fit for me anymore,
Hmm.
there's something that gets triggered in a positive way in your body
Yes.
that is like, this is happening. This is reality. This is not a fantasy, right? So we need to actually say the words in order to ground ourselves, if that makes sense. So that
Yeah.
we're not floating through space like, what was that experience? Did that even happen? Yes, it happened. And remember when you actually said the words, I'm leaving, and
Yeah.
how scary and how good and how healthy that felt.
Yeah.
And it's also a chance to, I'm not about like burning the place down, but I am about, there's always a space for truth.
Right.
There's always a space in however tactful and professional way you want to say it. Oh, why are you leaving? Oh my gosh, we're so shocked. And you say the reason, you just say it.
Hmm.
You say, I've asked multiple times for promotion and was ignored, you know,
Right.
or you say, I have been leading this project for the past 18 months and have not gotten the support and visibility that I've repeatedly asked for,
Yeah.
or you say what happened. It's so important to say that so that your psyche knows that you are someone who stands up for yourself.
I love this. Thank you so much for giving language to this as well, because I just want to give like the dating side of this.
Mm,
I want women to understand that women represent 70% of the breakups. You're going to need to know how to quit. You're going to need to know how to break up well if you are going to find your person. Because if not, you will stay in these environments and they will run you dry, right? And it will make you not want to date, not want to be in a relationship anymore. So learning how to do this is one of the best skills that you can learn to actually get to your desired results or outcome that ultimately you're going to have to, and in dating, it's a little bit different because there's a protection element. So I actually would not recommend doing things live or in person, maybe over the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
phone, but like, girl, or maybe in a public atmosphere. But I always phone, text, depending on where you are in the courtship. That's where you want to express this, where you feel most comfortable. But you want to get into the practice of doing this because 97% of the people that you date, you won't even get to a third date with. You're going to have to break up with at least 70% of those guys in some way, shape, or form. So get used to it. Get used to quitting. Get used to
Yeah.
breaking up. Get used to setting boundaries.
And just something I'll add to that is like, this probably happens in dating too, where your company most likely, because you're most likely really good at your job, your company is going to do weird things to try to get you to stay.
Hmm.
Oh, can you just do like that's great. Okay, that's fine. I see you wanted to quit. Okay, but can you just do like 6 more weeks and then also can you hire this person and can you onboard this new person? And yeah, we heard you want to quit, but we're gonna just like not we're gonna pretend that that didn't really happen.
Hmm. Right.
So it's not just a one and done. I mean, you say the boundary and then they're kind of testing it. They're kind of like, okay,
That's
but
right.
really, do you really want to quit? Because I think if we gave like you 5K more, like you might stay. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's you say the boundary, but then you have to hold the boundary
Mhm. That's
because they're
right.
gonna come at you
Mm.
with. I mean, I
Everything.
had a boss once say, "What's your number?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "I have no number. I want to get out of here. That's my
Right.
number. Leave me
Yeah.
alone."
I love that. Good. Good, 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 good. All right, ladies, I think that you've heard it from here. We want you quitting a lot, quitting well, quitting like a winner. Mandy, for those ladies that need to get in contact with you to help them with this transition that they may need to have, how could they learn more? How can they connect with you?
Okay, so the best way would be to join me on TikTok. I'm career coach Mandy, and I also have a product that I created. It's a journal. It's a physical journal. It's called the Should I Quit Journal.
Yes,
And it's just so straightforward. It's a 28-page guided workbook with different exercise per page to help you kind of sort through what you want to do next. And you can get that on TikTok Shop, or you could go to my website, which is mandytang.co.
I love that so much. Please pick that up because I think it's going to be so helpful for half of y'all that probably want to quit anyway and don't know how or need just some steps and some clarity around that. So definitely check her out. Mandy, thank you so much for being here. This has been so great.
You're welcome. So fun. I love your
I know.
podcast.
I love this so much, and I'm so glad that we were able to really get into it and talk about the things that aren't necessarily talked about and some of the unseen pressures that a lot of women of color may feel when they're trying to make transitions in their career and their dating life. So again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. All right, ladies, I hope that this was a helpful episode for you as you navigate transitions professionally and personally. Always, if you need help with that, definitely book a call with me. But until then, I'll see you on the other side. Bye bye. Hey, girl. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Guy Coaching podcast. If you like this episode and want to talk with me personally, please book a free consultation at www.getyourguycoaching.com/apply or subscribe and leave me a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Talk soon.